Hey, Editor and Ware here again. Just want to sneak this in here. You are currently watching part 2 of Riley's interview. If you feel like you're missing anything and you want to check out part 1, that's fine too. I'll leave the link in the description. I just want to give you that quick heads up here. I hope you enjoy. Follow-up question to that. Has that ever interacted with any other jobs you had lined up when you opened up something to say, hey, now it's going to take an extra 2 weeks? Are you guys balancing between 2 different jobs at the same time? Like, how does that even look?
Yeah, that's a constant struggle as well. Scheduling is very difficult. The best thing that I've found to kind of alleviate that pressure is to set up some gap days. So we intentionally take off on Wednesdays and weekends, and we end up working most Wednesdays and weekends. But because we set that time aside and we don't schedule work for it, it gives us the ability to just tap into whatever is the most pressing issue and get it done. And so it's also important to set a realistic expectation again with your customer and say, hey, this project, I have it billed for 100 hours. And so we got you scheduled for 100 hours, but there's a potential we're going to find more and it's going to get rough. And so we might schedule in our book 150 hours. And then if we get it done in 100, boom, we've got a weekend that we can actually take off and enjoy ourselves now. Usually that doesn't happen because, like I said, there's so much work out here. And if you do quality work, your phone's going to be ringing. You're going to be making money.
Beautiful. Beautiful. What are some of your fears and concerns on the work site?
Yeah, I would definitely say getting hurt is the primary concern. Like I said, I don't have a health insurance, and I'm in one of the most dangerous jobs. Falling off of a ladder is probably one of the most likely ways for me to die. And so I'm very intentional about safety, especially at heights, and trying to make sure that safety is a priority. It can be challenging, when you're under pressure and there's a time constraint. A lot of times safety is thrown out the window, and that's a place that you can save some time. But it's very important to stay conscious about what you're doing, stay in your body, and stay aware to make sure that you're maintaining safety. Because like you said, if I get hurt, I can't make money anymore. That's it. Nothing's really covering me there.
Interesting. So there's another follow-up question to that being, being physically capable. Do you work out? Are you staying on I can't speak. Are you staying on your toes on that? Like, how are you, it's a physically demanding job, right? So, some of the other concerns on the work site being, do you keep it clean? Are you staying physically healthy? Things of that nature. Like, how does that look?
Yeah, I would say maintaining the sleep schedule is the most important thing. And then trying to plan days that you have off as well gives you the opportunity to get restored health. Those restorative practices are very important to me. I make sure to always do yoga and meditate and things like that, because there's a lot of carpenters, a lot of OGs that, their bodies start to break down, especially their hips and their backs. And I just don't think there's enough carpenters that do those restorative practices to really take care. If this is something that you want to do for a lifetime, you want to keep on going, absolutely. You got to make sure that, get yourself a massage or whatever you need to do to take care of your body, but you got to do something for sure.
Awesome. Do you find it hard finding other employees or getting help on the job site?
Yes. My partner, Chris, and I actually do not have any employees at all. That's because I think that if I were to have employees, I'd have to shift from being on the site to being more of a manager, overseer. And it takes some time. You got to put some time in to get a return on that time of teaching somebody what to do. And I also have really high expectations for myself and my partner. And because we've had that relationship for so long, we can effectively hold those high expectations for each other in a way that's still healthy. And I just don't trust myself, honestly, to be an effective leader in that situation and be able to teach and show someone what to do, and also respect them as an individual and their time and their ability to clock out and not stay locked into this job 100% of the time. And just because I want to have a really healthy work environment, I don't think I'm able to provide that right now. And so I don't have any employees.
Follow-up question as well. So
Do you ever have to subcontract out some work, and how does that look? How do you find them? Do you network? Do you have another contractor's business card in your back pocket? Like, what's going on there?
Yes. By doing different jobs, it's very important to connect with other contractors, utilize those assets, build out your network. Because a lot of times I'll go through and I'll want to do a job and I'll realize, I know someone that can do a better job for a better price, and I can sell that to the customer. And, it's standard. A lot of times customers will pay a contractor 20% markup just for their connections. And so if you have those connections, you can hire someone to do gutters or roofing or painting or drywall, literally anything. And if they do a quality job and you're the front man, you're the one that's building trust with the customer, it also falls on you. If that work isn't right, you're responsible. You got to make sure it is. But there's money to be made there. And if it works out, if it's quality work, the customer is happy, it's a win-win-win. It's very important, like you said, to make those connections. And the biggest way to do that is to get out there and meet other contractors. You can meet them at your local hardware store when you're getting materials, or if you're doing a continuing education course, you can meet other contractors there as well. Or by talking to your customers and saying, wow, this looks really good. Who did this concrete work for you? Then you can put some trust back into your customer as well and help to build that relationship.
Nice. So how often do you reinvest in your company? And what are some of those reinvestments? Like, is it tools? Is it trucks, gas, things of that nature?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's very important to spend a lot of money. You see a lot of the top companies nowadays are losing money year over year because they invest so much into their company, especially with the way that, our government is just printing money, and it seems like the value of our currency is getting lower and lower over time. We want to stock ourselves up on nails, on T25 bits, on those kind of disposable items that we use right away. If we see a deal, we see a sale, we're going to stock up on those items. We're going to buy the best tools we can as soon as we need them, because it just seems like things are getting more and more and more expensive. And I think it's very important to have the best tools that you can for your job, because if something goes wrong, I want that to be my fault. I don't want something to be a problem on my job site because my tool doesn't work or it's not high enough quality that I can get the job done. That's extremely frustrating for me. If there's a problem, I want it to be on me, because then I know that's an issue that I can correct to myself. But if my saw's not working, I don't have that much control. I can try and fix it, but if it's just a bad saw, I'm stuck with a bad saw. So it's certainly smart when you're starting out to get a kit that's affordable and that makes sense to you. But as soon as you see an opportunity that you're limited by the quality of your tool, then it makes sense, step it up and get that tool, because that enables you to make more money for yourself.
I think that's really important, because it's like, again, finding an audience or buying the right things that are going to help you sell a better product or be a better, business. And it's the same thing with the lawn care service. These guys and girls who own them will sometimes have the same, weed whacker or leaf blower for a few years, but they buy them in bulk and they get them for a slight cheaper price.
Right.
And even with the trucks, they'll beat those things to crap, but they bought 3 at the same time. They can drop off $5-6 grand off the truck's value. And it's stuff like that. But even with the setups that they have, some places I just saw on YouTube where this guy opened up 4 different locations in the state, and he's using storage lockers, like, I don't know, public storage or something like that. Right. But he's utilizing those storage lockers as that instead of actually going and having it inside of his own property line, because he's like, well, it's only a seasonal job. I'm not going to, they don't get snow, but they also don't get, a whole lot of fresh or warm enough weather for it to be year-round service. So,
right.
Just utilizing, like you said, the best tool that best suits you. You don't have to go super expensive at the right time, but you also can't go too cheap, right?
Right.
You don't want to, it's like you got to balance that out. You don't want to buy the one cheap tool and it breaks, so you keep buying the cheap tool. But 3 cheap tools later, you could have just bought a mid-tier tool that would have lasted you just as longer, probably even longer. So I'm assuming you don't have any Harbor Freight tools in your bag, right?
No, we certainly do. I mean, there's a time and place for every tool, but we want to make sure that we're looking at stuff that provides the best value for us. Value is very important. And so if we're comparing like, okay, I could get this $50 Sawzall or I could get this $250 Sawzall. That $200 seems like a big difference. But if you're charging $100 an hour for your labor or $50 an hour for your labor, that increase in productivity can pay for itself very quickly. If this tool, I'm not going to have to, get a Allen wrench out to change the blade every time. It's cordless and I know it's going to work. If that saves me 4 hours in a month, boom, it paid for itself right there. And that is incredibly important. So you want to continue to think about things in terms of how much time does it take for me to pay off this tool? And a lot of times that's way shorter than you think. And in that point, it makes sense to buy that.
Talking about tools, what is the most reliable tool that you have?
My brain. I know I can count on it, but no, I really like Milwaukee Tools. That's my favorite brand. If they want to sponsor me, please do. I will definitely take y'all up on that. But it's important for me to know that the same batteries are going to work on all of my tools, that the equipment is going to deliver when I need it to. I can drop it, I can abuse it, and it always works out for me.
Have you ever had to service, redo, or completely rip out someone else's work?
Yes. And, there's an important point that comes with that, because a lot of times when a contractor is doing a remodel specifically, it's really easy for us to come through and say, oh, this trim looks bad. Like they didn't do that right. They didn't do that right, as a way to kind of try and upsell the quality of your own work. And I would just say, if anyone's considering they want to be a contractor, be careful of that, because we got to support each other, and you don't know what kind of things that person encountered on that job. You don't know what's beyond the drywall, what's beyond the framing, especially with remodeling. There can be some very challenging situations. And so you definitely want to take note of that personally in your head. But it's important to not undercut other people's work unless it's a functional deficiency or the customer points it out. But it's really important to not walk into someone's house and just trash on all the work that's been done there to make yourself look better, because really it doesn't make you look better. And it's important to not just talk down on everybody's work.
Hey, you never know. That could have been the husband.
Right, exactly. It could have been the person you're trying to sell your work to. You don't want to offend them.
Right. Do you ever find it kind of scary or concerning when you do find more, and how the customer might take that? You ever had somebody yell at you or be like, "No, it's fine, don't worry." Like, correction. Let me ask you this. I got a more in-depth one here. So, do you ever find it concerning when you find something and they don't want to fix it, and like, hey, this is going to get worse. This is actually might be kind of dangerous, and you don't want to fix this? Have you ever came across that situation?
Yeah, that's a very challenging situation, and it actually comes up a lot. I mean, home repair is very expensive, especially when you're in a low income area and people might not have the funds to really accurately take on these problems all the way. And that's when it gets time to be creative. There's a way to solve problems. It might not look the best, but as long as you're fulfilling code and it's functional and you're making the customer happy, take that opportunity to really listen intently to their needs and what they have. And more often than not, there is a solution, and there's a way that you can make it happen.
You ever gave out like some free service before?
Yeah, absolutely. You want to take care of your customers. They're taking care of you just by hiring you. And if someone's hiring me for 1,000 hours of labor or even 100 hours, I'm willing to donate a couple hours to make sure that I'm fulfilling all the needs, and I'm going to keep that trust. It's so important to maintain trust. And so, I really appreciate anyone that's willing to entrust me to take a project on. And so I'm absolutely willing to help them out and go above and beyond to maintain that. And that pays dividends every time, because if a customer sees that, that's who they're going to refer to their friends, their family, their neighbors. And that's how you branch out and really make some money. But there's a point where that stops, because a lot of times, you might get hired to do one thing, and the famous line, "Oh, while you're here, can you do this, this, and this?" And so I always take the time to do that first thing or two. And if it keeps going, I'll say, oh, I'd love to do this, but we've got other work. I can schedule time to make up a new bid for you and check those things off your list.
Last but not least, if you had to go back in time, what are some of the things you would change?
Honestly, I think it's really challenging having two people. It's really hard to run a business in a cooperative with only two people because it's you versus them. And I think it's better to have either one person or more. So I wish I would have hounded you a little bit more. Thomas, come work with my company. We can do this, the three of us. Yeah, that's one thing that would be cool, just to have a little bit bigger team. Chris and I talk a lot about if it's just one of us on the job site, how it feels like things are more than half as slow, if that makes sense. Like one person doing the work, especially carpentry, especially if you have that cooperative nature with somebody, if you get another person to come, it doesn't double your effectiveness, it like triples it. And I think that is magnified by the more people you have, the more people you have collaborating effectively, you're going to see exponential growth there. And so it's very important to have that solid team built up before you start on a business, and be keeping an eye out for people that are going to be able to multiply your labor, not just times 2, but times 2.5, times 3.
Nice. Do you ever contemplate like just giving up? Just like, you know what? I'm done. This is too much. This customer is too much. This job is too much. The product is too much. Whatever the case is, you ever just want to just throw the hard head down and be like, bye?
Yeah. That's how you know that you're doing something right, though. Nothing comes easy. And when life is challenging, those are the pivotal moments that really bring value, that really force you to learn, really force you to put yourselves in situations to fail. And the best thing you can do is fail. That's the best way that you can learn. You really want to seek out those failures and those things that push you to the edge. Because if you don't push your boundaries to the edge, you don't really know what that boundary is. You don't really know what you're capable of. And there's so many times that I've wanted to quit, wanted to walk away, where I told my partner, hey, this is it. And I'm really thankful that I have someone so sturdy who's able to help to align me and say, no, we got this, we can do it. But yeah, if you don't want to walk away at some point in what you're doing, that might not be the right fit for you. It's really important to challenge yourself and really push it to the edge sometimes.
You have any lasting questions for me? Do you have any lasting statements? I guess my last, actually, okay, I swear, last question. All right. It sounds like it was a growing experience for you when it came to interacting with customers. I mean, you've always worked jobs where you were interacting with the general public, but each job definitely had a very unique interaction, right? Somebody going to a hardware store is going to be very specific with what they're looking for.
Right.
And even working at a car wash, it's very specific. Like, unless somebody stole something out of someone's car, you're gonna deal with an angry customer very rarely, right? But doing this job here, you're going into someone's home sometimes, and you can have hoarders' homes. You can have, people who have drugs out, people who are very comfortable. It's a sacred space for people, right? It's their every day right there, right? So you're coming into a completely different environment with a completely different customer base, and you never know what you're going to get, especially if you have to say, hey, the only thing that someone's going to hear is this is going to cost you more money, right? Or this is going to take longer than what I expected. So you're going to interact with somebody in a different way. And I think what I'm asking here is, did you feel like you were well equipped to interact with a customer going into this? Or do you feel like this was definitely a growing experience for you?
I would say it's both. I mean, I learned so much through all my previous occupations, and I learned so much by failing as a contractor, not having good conversations, not setting proper expectations, and having upset customers. And if that happens, I can't walk away from a job with my customer being upset. They have a lot of leverage with me in that regard, because really, if I'm not leaving my customer happy, I didn't do my job correctly. And so there's points where I didn't set a good enough expectation, or I set too good of an expectation and I didn't hit that mark. And so I had to donate more labor, like you said, just to make sure that that customer is happy. But yeah, it's way more important to leave your customer happy than it is to leave that job profitable, in my eyes.
Absolutely. Okay, I lied. Last question, because this came ahead, and I think this is really important, and then I'll get you out of here. All right. we didn't talk about pay, man. We didn't talk about the money, the moolah. We got to touch on this real quick. And it's a short one, I promise. I'm not going to ask you how you come up with a bid, right? We don't have to go into the nitty gritty. A bid is basically you go there, you look at the job, you look at what they're asking for, and you're like, I could do this for this amount of money. Some customers, they're going to get multiple people to do it. Maybe they just call you because, you talked a lot about trust. Maybe they had a friend, a family member, whomever, they recommended you, and that's that trust right there, right? So you get to that point, you gave them a bid, they say, let's do it. How do you make sure you get paid? Right? If you're doing 1,000 hours worth of your time and you're putting your skill into this, you want to make sure that you get that payment, right? How do you do that? How does that look?
Well, I'll keep saying it. Trust is all really trust. As long as you have that connection with your customer, it's going to work out. Another thing, like I keep saying, is setting that expectation. So let's say I go to a job and I think this is going to take $1,000 to do. I'm going to tell the customer, hey, I think this is going to cost maybe like $1,500. I'm going to go home and type everything up, get you an exact number, and that's what this is going to cost. And as long as you set that initial expectation high, they might have some shock value to them and go, whoa, like that's a lot of money. Well, yeah, it is a lot of money. Things are very expensive, especially in construction. A lot of times projects will have a 50% increase in what the cost is. And so it's really important to let them know upfront. I like to give them a bigger number. And then I go home and my process for the bid, I'll tell you, I have an automatic system, like a spreadsheet. And so we upcharge for the materials a little bit, and that covers a lot of our overhead. And then we charge $75 an hour for our labor. And so we'll plug in the exact amount of hours that we anticipate things will take. And then we'll put a little bit of time in at the bottom, give us some flexibility. And it's important to me that that number comes in a little bit under the rough number that I gave them. And then because we set that expectation, now we're building trust because I came in under what I told them initially. And that's going to lead to your customer being happy every time.
Awesome. And then I swear on everything, what happens if they don't pay? What's your next step?
Yeah, I mean, there's really not much recourse. You can come up to a customer and have them sign a contract initially. You're legally supposed to have them sign a lien, so you can put a lien on their property in order to collect your money. But if you're at a point where your customer is just not paying you, that's a huge problem. There's a fundamental issue there beyond the money. And you really need to make sure that that's addressed. They must not be happy or something. Mm-hmm. And I haven't had a situation where someone came out and was intentionally trying to milk me for my work and not pay me. I think that if I advertised and I was meeting with people that I didn't know, that'd be more likely to happen. But because all of my work has started in my neighborhood where I grew up, branched out through their friends and their family and their friends and their family, all of my customers, I have a connection with those people beyond those people. I know a friend of theirs. I know a family of theirs. And if they're to burn me, they're going to look silly in that relationship as well. Mm-hmm. And so that trust and that connection, it works both ways. If you're skeptical about someone, you can always say, I'm going to need half upfront, half at the end. That's something we do often if it's a large number, especially. But I think there's also a lot of value if you believe in someone to say, hey, you don't have to pay me anything until all this work is done and you're completely satisfied. And if you tell someone that, they're like, wow, this is someone that I can trust.
Absolutely. That's very beautiful, man. And I appreciate you coming out here. I'm not going to hold you up too much longer here. A little quick synopsis on that. It's a lot of trust in this industry. You spoke a lot about it. I truly believe it. People, especially now in our country, there's not a lot of trust. There's not a lot of believing in one another. And sometimes it falls through the crack, and you'll be surprised how well a large group of people can all of a sudden just be all together, Yeah. So, but especially in this industry, there has to be a lot of trust. It has to be, and you have to, including in yourself, you have to trust your abilities. You have to trust that you're going to be able to get up in the morning. You're going to want to go and get the job done. And the person that's paying you and wants you there has to trust you as well. And that branches out to a lot of the whole thing, right? That is literally the whole thing. And more importantly, it's getting the money, right? Because you got a family, right? You got a mouth to feed.
Mm-hmm.
So, that all being said, it's a nice industry. It sounds like you can wake up when you want to wake up, right? And you have obligations. You can set those obligations when you're ready, and you have a partner. So it's not like you're doing it by yourself. And, you can get help in all kinds of ways. You can always call me.
Hey,
I'm available. Thanks again for coming out to Chocolate Espresso. We really appreciate you having here. And do you have any last words?
Yeah, I just want to summarize real quick. If you're a young person, you want to make some money, you want to learn some skills, just know that this is real. This is feasible, and you can do it regardless of how much experience you have, how much knowledge you have. Get out there and embrace failure and look for more and more ways to fail. That only works if you take note after that failure and realize, what did I do wrong here? How can I do it better next time? But that is hands down the absolute best way to learn. I would recommend start with the people in your neighborhood. Don't start that business right away as that LLC. You can work for cash. Once you have enough cash to buy some real good materials, go to the Secretary of State in your state, and you're going to be able to set up the LLC. For me, it only cost $150. You can get yourself an insurance policy. A lot of times those are pretty cheap. I was able to get $1 million policy for less than $50 a month. And then boom, you can be 18 years old. You can have your own LLC. You can be licensed and insured. And this is a real path that you can take to build skills, to make money, and to actually provide real value to your community as well. And so I just want people to know this is a path that you can take. There is money out here. There's going to be more and more work in the future. And good luck. Let's get this money.
How can they find RC Solutions? What you got going on there, man?
They can't.
Not him saying, hey, he's saying, I don't want any more work this year. I'm already booked out. Again, thanks for being here. We really appreciate it. And I hope you have a great rest of your day and try to stay safe. All right.
You as well. Thank you so much, Thomas, for having me up here.
Thanks for checking out Chocolate Espresso Podcast. I'm your host, Nuair. I hope you guys enjoyed that content. Feel free to give us feedback. If you know anyone or like to share anyone that you might have in mind, go ahead and hit that comment section. You can also email us at chocolateespressopodcast@gmail.com. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and we're going to try to push out as much content as we can every week or every other week.